back then, when my father was arrested, his trial was a religious trial, and then you have this religious judge who basically sits there, and a lot of times they have already made their decisions. And a lot of times the prosecutor and the religious judge is the same person, or they are all members of the same team. And we have documents. I do have actually copies of documents of his basically the court documents that you can easily see. Just one piece of paper, basically he's condemned to death. One of his charges was because he asked other Baha'is to go to the government and ask for assistance and justice. This was one of his basically charges, and there are like 4 or 5 other charges. He taught the Baha'i faith, to others. This was another charge for his execution. So you see that there are very extremely. The judicial system is really corrupt, and keep in mind the torture was an extreme element of this whole process. My father was really severely tortured. We know that he was lashed over 1,000 times, and this was with cables, with wire cables, and there are so many evidence of torture that we have.
Was that punishment, or were they trying to get him to renounce his faith?
Exactly. The main thing is because he was member of this National Spiritual Assembly and perhaps a well-known person in the Baha'i community. So if they could get him to renounce his faith and bring him on national TV and use him as a person that, look, for the entire Iranian community and the Baha'i community, that look, one of your members of the National Spiritual Assemblies has basically recounted his faith, and here is what he says. And of course, he did not, and basically he ended up being killed. And this is the story with all 230 other Baha'is who were killed.
Hi, my name is Nika Khanjani, and I am a filmmaker living right now in Montreal, Canada. I was born in Iran, and my family and I moved from Iran in 1979 to Texas. We moved from Iran because of the Islamic Revolution, and primarily because my family is Baha'i. My parents decided to leave because they were afraid that by staying I wouldn't have access to higher education, and they were right. From the early 80s, the Baha'i students and Baha'i professors and administrators were all expelled from universities. And this is one of the many civil rights that were denied to the Baha'i community. So the Baha'i community responded in a very creative and nonviolent way. So they started and organized a decentralized and totally volunteer-run university where students could travel to Tehran and study every month from their respective cities. I spent 2 years in Iran from 2002 to 2004 teaching English literature, writing, and conversation to students. And my classes were indicative of a lot of the classes in that they were held in people's living rooms. A lot of the classes were held in people's private living rooms, in basements, places where students could gather safely and study with their textbooks on their laps, and the instructor using a whiteboard to teach the lesson. This has been going on for almost 30 years. For many years, this was known as the Underground University, and it's because they had to operate under the radar. Although the government knew about all of their operations from the very beginning, because they were under constant surveillance and were raided on many occasions, and the soldiers or the police would take books and computers and lab equipment and and very important photocopy machines, because that's how the textbooks were made and distributed to the students. The students were often arrested and threatened with prison time if they didn't sign some promissory note that they wouldn't continue doing this illegal activity. In fact, it wasn't at all illegal, especially because Iran had signed the United Nations Charter for Human Rights that granted the right to higher education to all people, regardless of their race, sex, creed, religion, or class. And this was something that the Iranian government was blatantly denying the Baha'i community, and has been for almost 30 years. What I would say now is that things are getting much worse for the Baha'is. In the last few years, the persecution has increased, the pressure has gotten worse. They've been attacking school children, all kinds of people who have absolutely nothing but the best intentions for their country and their fellow countrymen. In May, it will be 1 year that 7 of the administrators of the Baha'i community in Iran have been detained in prison under false charges of espionage. One of those 7 is my uncle, who I lived with for the 2 years that I was in Iran. He's now 75 or 76 years old.
Hello, my name is Soroush Azadi. I am an optometrist in Austin, Texas. I have been living in the United States since I was 11. I was born in Iran though, and I left when I was 9. We escaped to Pakistan for a couple of years and lived there as refugees before we arrived in the United States. Currently in Iran, the members of the legislative body or the spiritual assembly of the Baha'is of Iran have been jailed since last November, and they have not had access to their lawyer, their family members, and they have had difficulty, the Baha'is of Iran have had difficulty getting from the government of Iran any proof for what they are being charged for. They claim, the Islamic Republic claims, that we have been helping Israel with selling secrets to Israel, and also for spreading propaganda against the Islamic regime. In today's day and age, all we can do to fight what's going on in Iran is to raise awareness throughout the international community. Therefore, here in the United States, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, there are separate resolutions condemning the government of Iran for jailing the members of the Baha'i community, the legislative body of the Baha'i community in Iran, and also trying to get the support of the President and the Secretary of State.
By the U.S. government responding to the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran, and by other international governments putting pressure on Iran to let the Baha'is out, do you hope that that international pressure will free the Baha'is? And do you think that what the international community has done so far has helped in any way?
Yes. The reason for that is when they were first arrested, and then multiple incidents since. For example, in February, the Revolutionary Court of Iran mentioned that within 2 weeks these Baha'is will be having a trial. Well, they've had no trial since. And the main reason for that, we believe, is because so many have known about it. Most countries and most regimes who are persecuting a certain minority will try to do it in hidden ways. And if more of the world, or more of the countries, or more people know about it, then it puts increased pressure on them, because no one wants to break humanitarian international law. So that's what we're trying to do by raising awareness. It has had an effect, and also it also helps that their lawyer, a Nobel laureate herself, who has a lot of publicity following her, has caught the eye of the international communities. So it does help for the international community to know about it.